What is going on, guys? It is your boy Perry back with another edition of Perry's Points. Little day late just because last week's episode was on a Tuesday. I got to interview Javier Vega, who's with 49 GM. He does the Fourth and Gold podcast. Really fun interviews, really fun to talk to him. Got a lot of insight about what the Niners are really, like what he thinks the plans are, kind of stuff like that. And that was last week's episode. So feel free to check it out at the 49ers Hive's YouTube page. You'll find all sorts of videos, all the Perry's Points videos, all of Madden Zach's videos, all the breakdowns, all the Niners news, things of that nature. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to give you another edition of Perry's Points. And, as always, I try to stick to my script and structure of how I want the show to be organized, but that's usually not the case. So for today's points, we're going to talk about the quarterback media conundrum, kind of what's really been going on lately with the quarterback situation and basically the draft. Who do we believe as a part of the entire media circus? Fitting Shanahan's offense. Once we move past the media, we'll kind of talk a little bit more about the quarterbacks themselves and who we think will fit his actual offense. The front office, quote unquote, delusion of basically what's been being put out. A lot of people saying that Niners are putting out smoke screens. This isn't smoke screens, kind of stuff like that. And then the last point is just other draft targets. Kind of maybe we'll touch a bit on who else the Niners are going to target in the second round or whatever else it may be. But to begin, guys, we're going to talk about the quarterback media conundrum. It has been absolutely crazy the past couple of weeks in terms of the news that's being put out from the Niners, from media heads, things of that nature. And it seems like that it's really had a lot of people divided over just who to believe and what reports to follow and things of that nature. And we've seen these reports coming from guys like Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter. Who else? Let's see. You got Jeremy Fowler also. Greg Cosell has been putting in his bits. It's been an absolute circus of a show just to see how the media has really been playing out what's going on with the 49ers. And it's kind of tough to speculate on what they're going to do. Obviously, I think they keep things really airtight. I don't think they tend to leak information much at all. I mean, looking at past drafts, for example, Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, we didn't really know who they were going to take at that time. Mike McGlinchey. The reports indicated leading up to it, but I still think there wasn't too much certainty going into Mike McGlinchey. Even this past draft, no one really anticipated DeForest Buckner. No one expected the trade, and then trading back into the first round for Brandon Ayuk. No one exactly expected that kind of stuff also. So it's just been like an absolute mind cluster of what's been going on with the 49ers. But that's to say that a lot of the media heads that have been talking, that have been speaking on behalf of the 49ers, and I don't mean like Mayoko and Keanu Martin, I mean like the national guys who have really been speculating about what's going on with the team, the Schefters, the Rappaports, the Fowlers, all those guys. I really don't think there's much like, I can't think of the word. Like, it's really hard to buy into what the Niners are going to do. And it's even harder to buy into what national media people are talking about. And that's really just created this conundrum of reports. And this kind of follows my second point already, but it's like, who do we believe? And that's not to say that you should believe everything that the national media guys put out. I mean, Schefter is very credible. Rappaport is very credible. Cosell, Fowler, Bucky Brooks, all the draft guys and all the reporting guys, I would say for the most part are very, very credible. But the bottom line here is that we've seen the word smokescreen being tossed around left and right. And that's all we've heard is smoke screens this and smoke screens that. And Mac Jones is not even in the question. Mac Jones isn't the person. It's down to Justin Fields and Trey Lance and possibly Zach Wilson. And it's crazy just to see how this entire thing has been playing out. I've seen a lot of fear, or not so much fear, but a lot of concern amongst the 49ers fan base that Mac Jones is going to be the guy. KJ Carp's credible, yes, but they're often wrong. And I agree, they are often wrong. And that's just kind of the lead up to draft day. When it comes to them reporting on guys who are interested in teams or having team meetings or whatever they're hearing in regards to guys maybe in free agency, that's a little more believable just because there's not as much secretism going on with free agents as much as there is going into the entire draft process. And that's just goes hand in hand with what KJ is saying here is that, yeah, they're credible, but they are often wrong. And it's an absolutely crazy process that's been taking place. And kind of just going back to the fear of the fan base, it's like Mac Jones isn't pick number 3 worthy. If Kyle Shanahan does believe that, and that's the case, and Shanahan wants to get his guy in Mac Jones, then we unfortunately cannot complain. Is it the sexy pick? No. Is it the quarterback that everyone wants? No. But you have to trust Kyle Shanahan to know who he believes is his best quarterback. But all the smoke screens and stuff, all the things people have just been kind of linking with the Niners and quote linking in terms of saying that, oh, Mac Jones fits Shanahan's offense perfectly. He's the exact mold of what Shanahan has always wanted in his quarterbacks, from Kirk Cousins to Matt Schaub to Brian Hoyer to Garoppolo, Beathard, Mullins. It goes on. And I think a lot of people have just really been stereotyping what's going on with the quarterback position and just trying to like connect that between Mac Jones and Kyle Shanahan and the offense entirely. And the thing about Kyle Shanahan's offense is that we all can say that his offense, while it is very complex, is very easy for quarterbacks to operate. And that's just kind of how he designs his offense. You've seen it all throughout his tenure with the 49ers. And unfortunately, we've had to deal with inconsistent quarterback play aside from Garoppolo's 2019 season. And even then, his 2019 season still had some questionable throws that we would have kind of expected to come out of Garoppolo at that point. But the bottom line is that his offense is very easy to really operate. But the problem is that as the league has been evolving, so has the quarterback position. And we've seen this just go on and on all throughout time, and even just the past few years or so. And you look at guys like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, I guess Joe Burrow when he played, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold to an extent. All these quarterbacks coming out of college who are extremely athletic, have solid arm talent, and really just kind of are the entire build. Like they can just more or less do everything, it seems. That's kind of what the league is shifting towards. And I mean, Tom Brady nowadays is really the only exception as terms of how natural pocket passers can still survive. And I mean, Tom Brady is arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. So he's more or less like the exception to how the league is evolving. Tom Brady is just a different kind of beast, and it's really amazing to see how he's just survived throughout his time playing. But overall, you guys, we've seen the quarterback position evolve, and I think it's time for Kyle Shanahan to evolve with that entire process also. Our good friend and more or less draft expert, Scott Gielan on Twitter, you can find him at Scott Gielan, he's really talked about how Kyle Shanahan's offense isn't so much as it is him changing as much as it is being adaptive to who he's working with. And that's not to say Kyle Shanahan is going to change his offense entirely to fit the quarterback. It's more or less about adapting to the quarterback's skill sets to make it work with him. And he can keep all the same concepts and keep all the same things he's normally been operating with Garoppolo and even the past quarterbacks with the Niners. But when you consider that he has the chance to add a Trey Lance, to add a Justin Fields, or even a Zach Wilson, if it somehow comes down to that, it opens up his playbook entirely because you're inserting quarterbacks who have phenomenal arm talent and phenomenal athleticism. Rich Madrid on Twitter posted a couple tweets about how Robert Griffin and Kyle Shanahan, when they were there together in Washington, Kyle Shanahan ran a lot of the zone read option plays, and we've seen how successful that can be with quarterbacks who really can just move and create out in open space. And now you can really just visualize how that's going to be with the 49ers. You give him someone like Trey Lance, you give him someone like Justin Fields who really can just do everything. And you add the zone read, you add the quarterback run to Kyle Shanahan's playbook. I feel like it makes his life a whole lot easier. I mean, you're creating a new element in terms of just using a quarterback's own skill set to his advantage and Kyle Shanahan's advantage as well, because you have a quarterback that can run and move out of the pocket. It changes the entire dynamic of how play action is operated entirely. What's going on, Luke? Pops in for a wee bit before heading out for an appointment. I think Fields would make defense stay honest defending that outside zone run. And Luke, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's Kyle Shanahan hasn't really been able to run the outside zone outside of obviously using his running backs, but having that added element of a quarterback who can really stretch the field even more. I mean, it's one thing to have all your running backs run outside zone and run it efficiently and effectively like Kyle Shanahan has done. It's another thing to add that same type of concept when you have a quarterback who could also run the outside zone. And it's that kind of thing that makes you go, wow. Like just wow, it's amazing what these quarterbacks can do. And we've seen how those mobile quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, like Josh Allen, have really transformed offenses entirely. And I know Lamar Jackson, as an example, comes with his knocks. I know he's not exactly the best thrower in that not so much has to do with his overall arm talent as much as it does with how Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens, uses him. But I will say that having that speed threat at the quarterback position goes a long way in terms of making the offense a whole lot easier. Alec, it's so ironic to me when people say Mac Jones is the Shanahan archetype, as if Kyle didn't make RG3 the offensive rookie over Andrew Luck. That is such a good point, Alec. And you look at it and it's like, okay, well, Kyle Shanahan has clearly had success with quarterbacks who can move. And Robert Griffin is just the prime example of just what he can do with a quarterback that can move. I know his time with Johnny Manziel wasn't that good, but I think Kyle Shanahan was the only reason Johnny Manziel was even relevant in the league at the time. You look at anything else, though, it's Matt Schaub, it's Kirk Cousins, it's Matt Ryan, it's Garoppolo. And I think it's just everyone stereotyping his quote unquote quarterback to really just go out and about and operate his offense to the fullest extent. And Kyle Shanahan's offense is pretty old school with a lot of new concepts and new designs that he keeps fresh and clean. But the bottom line is that Shanahan's is a run-first West Coast offense that really just tries to open up the middle of the field, takes a deep shot when he absolutely needs to, and looks to just absolutely confuse the front seven by any means. And he was really able to confuse front sevens by any means when he had Robert Griffin III being able to be a threat in the run game for a quarterback. So I think that Shanahan this year, assuming that the pick isn't Mac Jones or for whatever reason they miraculously don't take a quarterback, whoever it's going to be between Lance, Fields, and Wilson will definitely have that added element to their offense and really just expand on what Kyle Shanahan is already able to implement. Back to Luke. With Jimmy opposite side, linebackers can over pursue outside zone without defending the backside. Yeah, exactly. And you have Jimmy Garoppolo where it's like, obviously he's not going to really move outside the pocket much. And that 2019 year, we saw him scramble. We obviously didn't see the same Garoppolo pre-ACL, but we saw Garoppolo had the ability to move. But obviously that type of ability to move is in no comparison to a Trey Lance, to a Justin Fields, to a Zach Wilson. And not having that kind of threat can really hinder an offense. And I think it's pretty amazing, to say the least, that Kyle Shanahan has been able to work with quarterbacks who are pretty old school. And I mean, you look at Matt Ryan, you look at Jimmy Garoppolo, just his last two examples, to where they are very natural pocket passers who look to manipulate the pocket, control, quick release, quick timing, and things of that nature that really just kind of just scream old school football. And the fact that the league is just transforming and evolving. And we saw how Bill Belichick of the Patriots was able to evolve with that with Cam Newton as well. I mean, Bill Belichick had the most natural pocket passer who's ever played the game in Tom Brady. And you see what he was able to do with 1 year of Cam Newton. And although Cam isn't nowhere near the passer that Tom Brady is, we saw how dangerous of a threat Cam Newton was in the red zone for the Patriots. We saw how dangerous of a threat he was just in the run game. And a lot of the offense on the Patriots' side was very deficient because the wide receivers were bad. The pass catchers in general were bad, and really just no offensive thump. But that element that Cam Newton offers really gave that offense the only part of life that you can look for in an offense. Luke, if you were a defensive coordinator, who would you not rather face, Jones, Lance, or Fields? Yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to face Mac Jones, in my opinion. And I think this question can kind of go in all different directions. And the reason why I say that is because you look at Mac Jones, you look at Trey Lance, you look at Justin Fields, all of them have their own unique skill sets that really can cater to how an offense operates for the better for Kyle Shanahan. And the thing is that if you plug any of those three guys into Kyle Shanahan's offense, I think it's going to be okay. I think they're going to just succeed and succeed monumentally. The problem is that how high can they succeed? What is their ceiling in terms of operating the offense? Like I said earlier, we already know that Kyle Shanahan makes his offense as easy as possible for quarterbacks. And I mean, how many times did we see a Garoppolo missed throw to a guy that was wide open, or he didn't even see the guy that was wide open? Same thing with Nick Mullins, same thing with CJ Beathard. And it's been like that throughout Shanahan's entire tenure with the 49ers. And it's frustrating to say the least. But you look at it now and you look at all three of these quarterbacks, it's like they all can do the things that Garoppolo and the past quarterbacks for the Niners haven't been able to do. The only difference between Lance and Fields is that those two can really move. Mac Jones can't, but Mac Jones is still fantastic at processing the field. He's still fantastic at hitting throws where they need to be. And I know he had a bad pro day, but I don't think that should necessarily take away from his overall talent. I know he was throwing to elite wide receivers and had an elite offensive line and elite running back, but I guess you can say when you take all that kind of stuff away and you just look at him specifically, like just him only in the offense, you look at his mechanics, you look at how he throws the ball, and you look at balls that weren't two guys that were wide open on throws that were more or less contested. They were some pretty solid throws. And whether he was saved by his receivers or not, I think the bottom line is that Mac Jones he's a good quarterback. He's one of the better ones in this draft. It's just he's not pick 3 worthy. he's not the type of guy that puts fear in defensive coordinators. And I think to Luke's point, that's exactly why you don't go after Mac Jones, is that yes, he can operate Kyle Shanahan's offense, but he's not going to scare defensive coordinators. He doesn't have that dual threat like Lance and Fields do. And you have to fear that those guys are going to break the pocket and make a throw on the run with their amazing arm talent. And Mac Jones's arm talent overall just doesn't compare to those guys. KJ, SF convincing themselves to draft Mac will be as bad as 2005 when they took Alex Smith number 1. Yeah, unfortunately, KJ, I was really young at that time, so I didn't really understand the nuance and the circumstance of how bad that was. I've only really been able to read about it and talk about it with some people, but from what I've heard from a lot of the old school fans and even some of the fans now, and we've seen some articles talk about how Aaron Rodgers still should have been the guy. It would be really bad if the Niners do decide to go Mac Jones. I think no matter what, at the end of the day, we all support the team on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back so much. And if they're winning games with Mac Jones, I don't think anyone will be complaining. It's just a matter of the moment Mac Jones throws an interception or the moment that he loses a couple games in a row, assuming he becomes a starter, it's not going to make a lot of people happy, and it's not going to look good on Kyle Shanahan's resume, to say the least. And this might be a little bold, but I know Shanahan just got that decent contract extension, but I think it's safe to say that this pick is like franchise altering, and we're talking about, franchise quarterback, to say the least. And you're talking about picking between Jones, Lance, and Fields, and you analyze all 3 quarterbacks. You look at Mac Jones, who probably fits Kyle Shanahan's offense the best just because of his archetype and who he is as a quarterback. But he's not going to do the things that really wow you or amaze you like Trey Lance and like Justin Fields. And then you look at Trey Lance, who has been getting a lot of Josh Allen comps, but I really think that's just because of his size and overall accuracy problems. And Trey Lance does not have the arm talent that Josh Allen does, but Trey Lance is still very raw and he still has a lot of potential. And plus, he's only 19 years old, so he's really young. I think out of the big 3 that will be available to the Niners, assuming Wilson's gone, it's so the thing too about that is Al Sacco tweeted this on Twitter. He was talking about how of snaps taken under center, Trey Lance had the most experience with that. And I think he had 50 or 60% of his snaps in the offense taken under center. And obviously that was 2019, the only year he played with NDSU. But the bottom line is that if Kyle Shanahan is escaping from his typical archetype of a quarterback and wants to look at a guy who is more pro style, who is more pro ready, or not just so much pro ready, but has that type, has had that professional experience running a professional style offense, it is definitely Trey Lance. I think when you look at it from that perspective, you look at a guy who was able to make very good throws while turning his back to the defense on play action. You look at a guy who's been able to make some fantastic throws on the run, throw the ball deep pretty well. I know there's some inaccuracy there, and run when he needs to and makes the most out of those runs. So you look at that kind of stuff with Trey Lance, and I guess real quick, guys, I guess we're going on to point 3, fitting Shanahan's offense. Just wanted to squeeze that in there. Talking about Trey Lance, so we see that he is the most raw. I think out of the 3, he fits the offense the least just because of his inaccuracy, just because of really just his overall traits. I mean, big arm, not so accurate, super athletic, and kind of unfortunately tying that into Shanahan's offense. That's not really what Shanahan was looking for. But that's not to say Shanahan isn't willing to work with that kind of guy. I think he should. I'm going to go on record now to say it, but I think the pick will be Trey Lance. I am a huge Trey Lance fan, but if it's Justin Fields, I'm not complaining. Fields is like the 1B to my Trey Lance's 1A. That's how good both of those guys are. But talking about Justin Fields lastly and fitting Shanahan's offense, I mean, I think everything points towards Justin Fields. And if you take away all the Mac Jones speculation, Hey, Daddy, I really hope it's Fields too. I mean, Lance Fields, it doesn't matter. Lance is my guy, but Fields, I will still be very happy with. But you look at Justin Fields' ties with the quarterback collective and with Kyle Shanahan, and really just you look at all the draft notes that people have taken of him. You look at everything that he does on the field. Fields is one of the best intermediate throwers in the entire game. I think his deep ball is really good, but when it comes to throwing the ball over the middle of the field, Justin Fields, I think, is unmatched in this draft class. And Lawrence is solid. Zach Wilson is solid in terms of arm talent, but Justin Fields is right up there with arm talent as well. And you look at the things he does in OSU, a lot of people tried to discredit him for all sorts of things. And people are saying it's the one read offense, it's having good offensive playmakers, it's, again, the offense, it's turned into character concerns for Justin Fields. It's been all these kind of things that have really just flipped on Justin Fields that you read into the speculation and you read into what people are saying. It sounds like that he's getting himself knocked out of the top 5 or even top 10. Someone a couple of weeks ago said that Justin Fields was a 4th round pick. That's just blasphemy, to say the least. So the bottom line is that Justin Fields, I think, of the 3, fit the offense even better than Mac Jones. And that's just because of what Justin Fields offers in terms of the zone read option in the run game, if Shanahan wanted to use him like that. Overall arm talent, overall intermediate throws, short throws, deep ball. Justin Fields really is the most complete quarterback of the 3 that will likely be available. And if I had to I like Trey Lance just because of I think he has a higher ceiling than Fields, and that's not by much. But if I were to really just speculate the 49ers' overall draft board, you take away Lawrence, we're going to assume Zach Wilson is gone. I highly believe it goes Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones. Or just because of how bad Mac Jones was at his pro day, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Fields, Lance, Kellen Mond, and Jones. Alec, Lance is only 20 years old too, and everything he accomplished was at the age of 19. That's just mind-blowing. I don't even know what Lance's ceiling is, to be honest. Yeah, Alec, I agree. I want to believe that Trey Lance has the highest ceiling in the entire draft class. And I mean, you look at just his physical abilities, you look at his arm talent, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely unreal. But the thing to take away from that is because I've kind of been getting knocked for this myself, and even though the level of competition Lance has faced in college is really low, that's kind of been one of his biggest knocks outside of the accuracy, is that the FCS colleges just are not that good. And I think Lance didn't do himself any favors. If you guys go on Twitter, and you follow me on Twitter at Anthony RM Perry, I put up a couple little threads about Trey Lance, and I kind of just highlighted some of the key plays that I liked and some of the couple plays I didn't like. Again, the big thing about Lance is that while he does have the arm talent, the arm accuracy is just kind of a main concern. And it is at about the levels that Josh Allen was at when Allen was in Wyoming. But to say that Lance's accuracy takes away from his overall draft status, I don't think that's really a right way to think about it. You look at where Josh Allen got drafted by the Bills. I think he was the 11th overall pick. You looked at that at the time and you went, wow, even then that's way too high. This kid cannot do anything because of his accuracy problems. Josh Allen literally went from a 50% college passer all the way up to 65, 70 with the Buffalo Bills. And that is just an absolutely absurd jump, to say the least. And the thing is that Lance, I won't say that Lance will make that kind of jump. I mean, that jump that Josh Allen took was just absolutely unbelievable, to say the least. But you look at what Trey Lance offers, you look at how he ran the offense. He called all the plays at the line of scrimmage for North Dakota. He turned his back to the defense on play action. He's got all the tangibles that I think Kyle Shanahan would like. But it's just the accuracy is the biggest knock. And that's the only question, is that can he overcome those accuracy issues? And if the Niners go that route, will he be the pick? And I don't know if Shanahan will really want that type of problem in his offense, having to deal with a guy who will be consistently inaccurate, at least to start off his career. And watching his game too, Lance's intermediate throws are very good. He's just got a cannon on his arm, and he's not afraid to throw it into tight windows. The only difference is that between him and Garoppolo is that Lance likes to use his lower body to generate a lot of power into his throws of all levels of the field. But intermediate especially, he's not afraid just to go out there and absolutely sling it. What are you barking at? He's not afraid to go up there and absolutely sling it. And I think that's what Kyle Shanahan likes. A lot of people have been kind of speculating about how or like what quarterbacks will be able to fit in his offense, kind of furthering this point real quick. I think Shanahan will be primarily looking for someone who will hit the intermediate throws the best. There should be no excuse for quarterbacks to miss short throws. Deep throws, same thing. I mean, we've seen a lot of schemed open deep throws that were missed by Mullins and by Garoppolo, and I don't think Lance will be that guy. Lance's deep accuracy is in question, and I have that written down. He is one of the guys that, while his arm talent is good, the deep accuracy is really a big question mark. And Kyle Shanahan's offense isn't necessarily based on making deep throws, but having that guy who can hit those deep throws and having that guy who can go out there and make the big splashy play downfield when it needs to be done, you need that type of element. And Lance will do that, but he just won't do it consistently. And that's kind of the main reason why part of me thinks he won't get drafted, is because of the deep inaccuracy, is because of the overall inaccuracy. But when you look at the throws he does complete and does make that aren't checkdowns, they are absolute lasers. So kind of moving off the offense just a little bit, I kind of want to talk a little bit more, not so much conspiracy theories, but so much as the front office quote-unquote delusions that have been going on. For the people watching right now, I kind of want your thoughts. Leave them in the comments, but let me know what you guys think of Kyle Shanahan kind of keeping his quarterback evaluations to himself. I think that's pretty interesting, to say the least, that Kyle Shanahan reportedly hasn't wanted to share his quarterback evaluations. I know that report came out that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, or Shanahan and the rest of the front office, were pretty divided about who they're picking at quarterback, where one side is saying Mac Jones, and I think that's Shanahan reportedly, and the other side wants Trey Lance. And the guys at 49 GM, Javi Vega in particular, has really talked about how, I think he had a tweet one time that quoted that report, and this was a few weeks ago, and he was talking about how Shanahan wants Mac Jones, the front office wants Trey Lance, but no one is bringing up Justin Fields. And it's, again, it kind of goes back to my beginning point, how the quarterback media conundrum has just absolutely thrown a wrench into everything. But I will say this, I think that no matter what's going on with the 49ers, I think the front office has been absolutely controlling the narrative of what's being put out. Either that, or someone in the front office reportedly leaked the Mac Jones interest, if there even was any interest. And that's kind of, maybe the front office is just seeing who leaked that information. But I don't want to start any conspiracy theories. That's just way too much. That's way too many questions to go about it. The bottom line is that whatever the 49ers are doing, I think they've been really good at keeping it in-house, to say the least. It does feel like it's been a lot of speculation. And I said this way earlier too. I think that the Niners have been really good at keeping everything airtight amongst their front office. We've never really known what their intentions were in every NFL draft that have gone about. Even the Nick Bosa draft, for example, a lot of people on Twitter have been referencing how the 49ers in the front office took Quinnen Williams out to IHOP, and they had all these meetings with him and everything like that. And Quinnen Williams was reportedly the pick. And a lot of people really bought into that. And then all of a sudden that pick turned into Nick Bosa. And a lot of people were going, oh, well, you know, edge was a big need as well. That wouldn't have been surprising. But I think the bottom line is that a lot of people really bought into that Quinnen Williams hype. And that kind of goes to show that you can't really believe all the reports that are being put out there. And it's a lot. I think it's a lot on people mentally to see all these different wrenches being thrown into the entire process of the 49ers, just because it's the quarterback position. It's absolutely the biggest position that needs to be addressed amongst the 49ers. And you just look at everything that's been going on with the 49ers in the past. I mean, I would argue even last season that had Garoppolo been healthy, or even if Nick Mullins played at a more competent level, I think the team would have made the playoffs. And that's even with all the injuries on both sides of the ball, on offense and on defense. The team was really in games for quite a long stretch. I mean, the Saints game that probably should have been a win. The Seattle game, that probably should have been a win as well. The Dolphins game was a mess. The fact that we even won both Ram games is wild, but the team was one quarterback away from really just competing in the playoff hunt. And even if the Niners were to have not gone deep in the playoffs, the fact of the matter is that they were still quarterback play, or just good quarterback play, away from being a serious threat. And jumping ahead now, you look at what's being rumored, or not what's being rumored, but just all the Vegas odds being put on the 49ers. You look at that kind of stuff, you see that the Niners have, the fourth highest odds to win the NFC in general and make it to the Super Bowl. And that's behind the Buccaneers. That's behind what I have here. They had the Saints at the time. That was behind the Buccaneers. That was behind the Packers. And it looks like, I think I wrote down that was behind the Rams at the time. And this was a while ago, too. There's some old notes. So I haven't looked at it recently. But the bottom line is that when I saw that the 49ers had the fourth highest odds to even just make the Super Bowl out of the NFC, and that was with quarterbacks in question, and this was all way before the team even did any of the re-signings. This was before the Verrett signing. This was before the Juice signing. It was before Trent Williams. It was before Dante Johnson. It was before Marcel Harris, Jeff Wilson. All these signings that the teams performed, these odds were put out before the front office really decided to make any kinds of moves. So you look at where Vegas believes in the 49ers, and this just goes to show just the Niners are just a quarterback away. And I guess kind of just going off from the front office delusion, I think tying it back all together, I think that the team is just keeping it in-house. They should. I don't know where the leak would have even came from. If Adam Schefter is reporting it, I think that Schefter would have heard it from some type of main source that he thought he could trust within the 49ers. And I was talking to the guys about this amongst the 49ers hive, but I think that when you talk about Adam Schefter reporting this kind of information, he's not getting this stuff from area scouts. I would imagine that Schefter is going to get this kind of information from some pretty high-end sources, to say the least. And that's not GMs directly, but that's some type of coordinator, that's some type of coach with high ranking to put out or to tell him that kind of statement. A-Statty, I would not mind Mac at picks 9, but trading up to 3, I want upside. Yeah, I think of the quarterbacks available to the 49ers at pick 3, Mac Jones has the least amount of upside. But I think, it's tough, but I think Mac Jones will be the safest pick. I think you just look at him, who he is as a quarterback, what he offers. He is definitely the safest guy to go. But Mac Jones, if he plays like Garoppolo, will take you to a Super Bowl. It's just a matter of, can he beat Patrick Mahomes head-to-head? Can he beat Josh Allen head-to-head? And that's just in the Super Bowl alone. Let's look at the playoffs. Can he beat Tom Brady if the Niners play the Bucs? Can he beat Aaron Rodgers? Can Mac Jones beat any of these guys? Russell Wilson, for example, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray. All kinds of question marks that go into this entire process. And Mac Jones I think if things worked out and the team stays healthy, it is exactly like a Garoppolo situation. I think if they stay healthy, it's a playoff team, deep playoff team, maybe. But Mac Jones just doesn't have the upside that Lance and Fields don't or do, for example. KJ, Packers, Bucks, Rams are still higher odds to make Super Bowl. Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't miss out on the Rams. Yeah, so the point talking about earlier, KJ, was like the Niners still have really good odds to make it to the Super Bowl, and that was before all the injuries and not the injuries, the free agents and stuff. And even talking about it now, it looks like that still have two. It's a really bold assumption, or not assumption for me to say this, but I don't think it's out of range that the Niners could possibly make the Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. I know that's never been done in the history of the NFL, but you guys look at the 49ers roster right now. This is a win now team, assuming they're healthy. And this is even before all the draft picks. I mean, you're looking at the draft now, you get your quarterback, whether it's Fields or whether it's Lance or Wilson. You look at the second and third rounds where the team could possibly go Asante Samuel, Landon Dickerson, Rondale Moore, Eric Stokes if he somehow falls out in the first round. You look at what the team can do in the second rounds on, and this draft has a lot of depth at a lot of the positions. I think the weakest amount of depth, is probably interior offensive line in the later rounds of the draft, but this game really nitpicky. The bottom line is that this draft has overall a lot of really good talent that the Niners could fill out their roster with after day one. Will the Niners trade back into the first for another day one pick? I don't know. They've historically done that with Foster, with Ayuk. Who's to say they won't do it again? But the bottom line is that these odds are being made for the 49ers, and the roster isn't even complete. And this is Vegas going, we know what this team's capable of when they're healthy. We know what this team can do. And this is kind of moving on to my fifth and final point, other draft targets. This team is a championship team. That's the bottom line. If they can stay healthy, if they can just compete, if they can just win, I think the NFC West is still one of the best divisions in the entire league, probably a top 2 division. I think off the top of my head, the NFC West And what's another good division, guys? The NFC West. And man, what else? What else is a good division? The AFC West, I guess. Chargers and Chiefs will be pretty good. I'm not sure how the Raiders will do. Hey, what are you barking? There's another good division. I can't get off the top of my head, but the bottom line is that the Niners are absolutely going to compete. They're going to just ball out against their competition, and they are just a healthy. Oh, hold on, guys. Let me get these dogs real quick. All right, sorry about that. little dog. I'm house sitting with my girlfriend, so a couple of the dogs were wilding inside the house. But back to the key points. I think that the Niners, they are just a quarterback away. They really are. And I'm not going to say I would put money on the Niners making and winning the Super Bowl. Thanks, KJ. I know the dog agrees. We need a quarterback. But I will say that the team is just a good quarterback play away. Wide receiver, cornerback. What gets drafted in the second? Shoot, I think cornerback is the bigger need in the second round, but I was looking at the wide receiver market. I think the Niners could still go about addressing the veteran wide receiver market outside of Mohamed Sanu. There's a couple decent options they could go. There's a couple decent options in the secondary that they could go in free agency too if they want to spend money, but I don't think they need another veteran option, Jason Verrett. So wide receiver, cornerback, Ace, I think the team should be leaning cornerback. I feel that they could get good wide receivers later on in this draft. I really like Tylan Wallace. I really like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Simi Fehoko is really good. The wide receiver out of BYU who was thrown with Zach Wilson a lot is really good also. Daz, I think his first name was Daz. There's a lot of good talent at wide receiver in this draft class, and I think that's what pushes me to lean cornerback more so than wide receiver. I think the cornerback drop-off between the first and second rounds down is pretty steep. There's still some decent cornerback talent in the later rounds of this draft, but it doesn't compare to the first and second rounds. And you look at – I'm going to pull it up right now. Let's see. You look at all the cornerbacks that will likely be available in the second round. Asante Samuel, I highly think the team should be targeting. Let's see, here we go. Greg Newsome, if he falls, Ifeatu Melifanu, Elijah Molden, Paulson Adebo. Those are kind of like the main second round guys I think the team should be targeting if they want to go cornerback in the second round. But you look at the drop-off, there's some other decent talent later on in the draft. Sean Wade, Robert Rochelle, Cameron Bynum, Brian Mills, I like. Tay Gowan is another decent prospect. So the talent is okay, but the drop-off in level of talent is pretty steep. And if I was leaning any position in the second round, it definitely should be cornerback. And I think wide receiver, going back to that, I think that should be addressed later on in the draft once again. I think if I was looking at a second-round draft board for the 49ers, and this is just my personal preference, I would do cornerback, interior offensive line, because I like Daniel Brunskill, but I don't know if I can necessarily peg him as a starter just because I think the team could use an upgrade at right guard. So looking at the second round right now, I have cornerback, interior offensive line, and looking at other positions in the second round. I don't even think wide receiver would be the third. I think edge. I think the team could possibly do an edge player in the second round as well. It's an absolute big toss-up, and I think that's what's really fun about the entire draft process is that you don't know what this team is going to do. And really, when you go down the second round on, it can still be team need. It could be best player available. For all we know, in the second round, the Niners could just happen to take a tight end. I'm not saying that'll happen, but I'm just saying because of how different the draft process is and just how much you can't really buy into the second round picks on, you don't know what it's going to be. I don't think the team, like a couple years ago, I don't think we expected them to take Dante Pettis in the second round, although they traded up for him. And look how that turned out. So I think kind of jumping back to that reference now, I think you look at how Dante Pettis turned out, I think the team could have gone a lot differently with that pick. That kind of makes me believe that the team may not want to invest a decent draft pick at wide receiver, just considering how developmental wide receivers are these days, just how easy it is to develop one and make them successful. And the Niners should be looking to upgrade wide receiver depth, but we're talking about wide receiver 3, Ace. So it's like let me post a comment. So we're talking about wide receiver 3. So you look at Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and then you still got guys coming back like Jalen Hurd, like Jawan Jennings. And you look at Mohamed Sanu even, and I don't think Sanu would be wide receiver 3. But to say that those guys can compete for wide receiver 3, sure, they could do that. But I still think the Niners could use some type of injection of talent at wide receiver. And the only reason why I say that is because you lose Kendrick Bourne, you kind of lose that Z receiver in the offense. And you look at what he did. He was a solid wide receiver, to say the least. And I mean, his production is very replaceable, but to actually go out and find a Kendrick Bourne replacement, I don't think will be too easy. And that kind of puts me into this question whether or not the Niners want to go about that process of developing a wide receiver behind Ayuk and Samuel and Sanu. And I think the team went out to get Sanu because he's a veteran leader in the locker room. The wide receivers, Ayuk and Deebo, were posting him on their IG stories all the time. Ayuk, not too long ago, was really excited that Sanu got re-signed. So they already have their veteran guys, so I don't think they target another veteran in free agency. And if they wanted to develop another wide receiver, they could do that. But the thing to me is that the wide receiver room is so young. Deebo Samuel's not that old. Brandon Ayuk's not that old. Hurd's not that old. Jawan Jennings. These guys aren't that old. And Sanu is really the only veteran in there. So it's a matter of, will the team want to go for another young guy and really have 3 young wide receiving starters? I don't know. It's really risky. Deebo Samuel, a lot of people pegged him as an extension of the run game, but he could still be used as a wide receiver very well. So you kind of look at that, and when you look at how Deebo was used, and last season it's just such a big outlier just because of how bad quarterback play was. I mean, Deebo Samuel seemed like 90% of his throws were behind the line of scrimmage, so he didn't really get to be used as a wide receiver. And that throws out the question of, will that continue, whether they get a new quarterback or not? So you look at that, and then you kind of think, well, they could use another wide receiver. Mohamed Sanu, I don't think, should be wide receiver 3. I think he should be 4 or 5. Jalen Hurd should be wide receiver 3 if he could stay healthy. He has so much upside. He just needs to stay healthy. Jawan Jennings, we don't really know much about him as of yet. So if the Niners wanted to add a wide receiver, I know I've kind of been ranting on about this. Third-round talent, I think if these guys fall, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Elijah Moore, another solid prospect, Tylan Wallace, Amari Rogers, and Dwayne Eskridge. Those are kind of like the guys I think the Niners would be targeting in the middle rounds if they wanted to get a wide receiver who could play day one, but also play about 40 or 50% of the snaps. Just considering that the 2 starting wide receivers on the outside will likely be Deebo and Ayuk. And that's assuming Shanahan lets Deebo start on the outside. So I know I've been ranting on. I know Ace, that was a really good question. What gets drafted in the second round? It's just a big toss-up to say the least, you guys. But overall, the Niners can just do anything in this draft, you guys. It's outside of the quarterback pick. The draft onwards is just going to be a huge toss-up. And that's the thing, is that the Niners don't have major needs. They don't have major true concerns at any one position other than quarterback that makes you go, this needs to be addressed. You look at defensive end, for example. Nick Bosa's coming back. Samson Ebukam is back. They got some depth. Dee Ford reportedly could be ready, so I don't know how that'll play out. I don't want to buy in Dee Ford. But the defensive end depth is there, but they could use some more guys off the edge. I know they just lost Ronald Blair. That was a pretty key loss. Kerry Hyder as well. So you look at that. That kind of makes me think the team would go edge in the second round. You look at cornerback depth. K1 is back, and Verrett's back, Mosley's back. So those are kind of like your 3 guys. But they could also be looking at another upgrade at cornerback, just because I don't know if we can bank on Verrett being healthy for a whole season yet again. And then I said it earlier, but you look at right guard. Also, right guard is another position I think the Niners could target in the second round. But big toss-up. Landon Dickerson, Wyatt Davis, Creed Humphrey, Ben Cleveland. I like a lot of those guys to fit into the 49ers offense. But again, Daniel Brunskill wasn't bad at right guard when he was healthy. It's just a matter of, is he going to stay healthy? Is the entire offensive line going to stay healthy? Because that was the thing with Brunskill, is although he played all 16 games, he literally played everywhere on the offensive line. He got snaps at center. He got snaps at right guard. He got snaps at the tackle spots. So Brunskill didn't really get a chance to really show his true talent at right guard. And it's a matter of, does the team believe that Brunskill can be the guy at right guard moving forward? I think so. I think he's a solid guard, but it doesn't hurt to throw in some competition. So, you guys, I think that about wraps it up for me today. I think we hit on a lot of the main points. It's been an absolute crazy draft process. I know we talked a lot about the quarterback position. We talked about the quarterback media conundrum. We talked about who can we believe in the media. And, I mean, you can believe Schefter, you can believe Rappaport, but there was a comment earlier talking about how even the big media guys get those picks wrong and get their reports wrong. So you can't really go out and just automatically believe every reporter. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't buy into all of it, especially with all the Mac Jones hype. Don't buy into that. I don't. I really don't think Mac Jones is the pick. And if it is, truth, I will not want to be on social media when that happens. But moving on, we talked about how each of the three quarterbacks, Jones, Lance, and Fields, can fit into Shanahan's offense. We talked about the front office delusion in which Kyle Shanahan's quarterback evaluations are staying amongst himself, reportedly away from the rest of the coaching staff. And then lastly, we talked about other draft targets. So it's been a really efficient and effective show. I know you guys heard the dogs barking in the background. I apologize about that. But hey, maybe the dogs just wanted to join the show also. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. It's been really fun and really exciting to break down the entire draft process for the 49ers so far. Quarterback has just been – it's been a big, big toss-up, and I know, yeah, Ace, I agree. Mac is just clickbait for the networks and blogs. Someone talked about that. I forgot who it was, but they were talking about how – oh, shoot, who was it? I forget. Anyways, they were talking about how Mac Jones, like if the reports about Mac Jones going to the 49ers did come true, or not even came true, if like you look at Mac Jones and it's like, wow, the Niners could possibly take Mac Jones, and you look at him. You look at Dad Bod Jones compared to Trey Lance and Justin Fields, and you look at all three of them as prospects, and you just go, Mac Jones at pick 3? Absolutely. No way. No way. Cannot buy into that. So, yeah, Ace, I agree 100%. I think Mac is just clickbait. I do think he's a good quarterback, just not pick 3 worthy. And it's just crazy to compare Mac Jones to Lance and Fields, and you look at all three of them as prospects, and it's like Mac Jones doesn't even sniff the overall talent that Jones or that Fields and Lance have to offer. So it's clickbait to say the least. I definitely don't buy into it. Yeah, Luke, hit that thumbs up button. You'll find it on the YouTube page. You'll find it on anywhere else you can hit thumbs up button. Drop a like, drop a retweet on Twitter. Guys, follow me on Twitter at Anthony RM Perry. I do occasional video breakdowns. Recently was Trey Lance. I'll probably do Justin Fields and Mac Jones next, just of my own opinions on what I think and see and how they could fit. And we're just a couple more, 3 more weeks. The 7th, the draft is on the 29th. 3 more weeks away from the draft? That is unbelievable, guys. The draft is just right around the corner. Stick with 49ers Hive through the entire draft process. Matt and Zach are always talking Niners news. We're always putting up articles. We'll be having a mock draft article coming out this week. Me and my man Stuart at So Locked In will be putting in, I think, our 6.0 edition of the 49ers Hive mock draft. We'll eventually get a huge article of just Niners big roundtable compensation type or compilation type thing of the draft. Guys, thank you so much. Follow me on Twitter at Anthony RM Perry. Follow 49ers Hive at Twitter at 49ers Hive. I really appreciate all you guys being with me throughout this entire video. And I'll be back next week for Perry's Points, 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is the Bay Area, from 1:30 to about 2:30 on, and I'll be breaking all the latest and greatest news going on with the 49ers, any other league-type information. And I can't wait to get back to you guys. Thank you so much, and have a really, really good Wednesday. And the dogs say have a good Wednesday also.